Welcome to the LC3 Family Talk podcast, where we take a deeper look at everything from recent sermons to current events, all through a biblical lens. You'll love the guests and stories you'll hear on LC3 Family Talk, where our goal is connection, community, and relationship with God and with one another. And now, here's your host and one of our pastors, David Pritchard.
Hello, everyone. This is Pastor David. It's my joy to be the host of LC3 Family Talk. We do a lot of different things here today. We're going to do a fun one about a recent missions trip that we had as a church. And so I brought a couple of friends to come join me, and you'll recognize both of them, Pastor Reese on my far side, and then a face that I think you'll recognize. Veronica has been up front, but you probably mostly know her amazing voice. And so I'm really excited for you to get to know Veronica a little bit better. And maybe we'll start with that, Veronica. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you find yourself here at Lake City?
Our family was actually missionaries in Haiti when I was growing up. We transitioned back to the States because Haiti was in a lot of unrest. That's when my dad became active duty because he was reserves before then. We first were stationed in North Carolina for about 2 to 3 years, and then we came to Washington July of 2023. When we got plugged right in, got to get involved in everything here.
Yeah, your dad's active duty, but he's an active duty chaplain.
Yes,
in
yeah.
the Air Force.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, he enjoys it.
Brag about you and up front. What I love, because I've had lots of conversations with Reese, is there's so much more to you than just the singer up front, but the singer up front's pretty fabulous. So thanks for the way you serve, and really appreciate you up there. So nice job. But thanks for being here. And Pastor Reese, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so we are going to be talking about what God did in Malawi this year. We took a team of 26 people, largely high school students, but we had some adult leaders on our team as well that were really important to what we were doing. We went to the country of Malawi, which our church has been a part of going to Malawi for, I don't know, 10, 15 years or so now.
For sure, yeah.
So this has become a rhythm just as we've thought about how we disciple our high schoolers to have mission trips every year. One we'll do kind of locally here in the U.S., and then the off year we'll do an international trip. And so for the past really 2 years, we've done a Malawi trip for our high schoolers, and this was the second one for that.
That's great. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is because we did take a large group of our youth, and I thought that would be really fun for folks to hear. The other is because we do have quite a connection with Malawi that takes place, and oftentimes I don't think our folks necessarily know about that. And so this is a good opportunity for us to jump in and talk a little bit about that. And so let me just start with a simple question. So your family was in Haiti.
Yes.
Outside of that, and I'll throw it to both of you, what experience have you guys had in mission trips?
Yeah. So like I said, we were missionaries in Haiti for about 5-6 years. So we moved to Haiti when I was about 5 years old. My youngest brother, Daniel, he was just a newborn, so we moved there when he was just 2 months old. But being so young, I kind of grew up with the culture, and in that it was such a blessing to get to understand how things work there, and just to see how God's hand was in every little thing that we're doing. The importance of prayer and trusting Him through everything really taught me that at a young age. And so being able to go to Malawi, I was always praying. I was like, Lord, I really want to be able to go on a mission trip without my parents to see how I would do, But it was such a blessing being there.
How did you do?
She did amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was such a blessing because while I was there, I've seen how my parents wrestle with trying to find good staff who believes in the mission, who believes in the vision, and who can make an impact there. So seeing how joyful they are when they find those people who can invest in those kids, because we have a church, an orphanage, and a school there. Finding people for that, it can become challenging.
Absolutely.
But just another reminder how God is in everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How about you, Reese?
Yeah, and so we went to Malawi 2 years ago, like I mentioned, so summer of 23. And prior to that, I really just had like very little missionary experience. We had done like the Dream Center in Los Angeles, but in terms of doing anything internationally, like we had done nothing. And so going this time around, after having some of that experience before, was just so helpful in the way we planned everything and the way we put our team together. And so Malawi 2023 was sort of my first shot at an international missions trip. And once we went, we were like, man, we need to try to get back here as much as possible because of some of the things Veronica was talking about.
Allison got to go this time.
Yeah, this was way better than the first time because Allison was not there in the first round, and then this time
But I was there.
and it was still a lot better. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was really sweet having her there, and Allison's a nurse, and so she got to do some medical outreaches and even some training along with John and Nelia Moliasa, who are members of our church and have served on our team, and they're also in the medical field, and so they were able to do some really cool medical outreaches and support part of the mission that the Passion Center has.
We'll probably get into this a little bit, but one of the things I love about how Eric and Polera and Saul, the staff of the Passion Center, one of the things I love about that is they find the gifts on the team and they're like, oh, we could do this and we could do that. And I'm anxious to hear a little bit more about some of the stuff that we did. And you just alluded to one of them, which was some medical things. Tell us, is there any more to that you could share?
Yeah, one of the things I'd say just really quick before we jump into some of those is, so for those of you that don't know Malawi, it's one of the smaller countries in Southeast Africa and traditionally one of the poorest of the poor countries in Africa. And so the Passion Center has been around for 20 years. And that was part of our going that at that time it was their 20-year anniversary. So it was a huge celebration there. But you're right. The Passion Center's ministries, although they are all church-based, there's a very vast expanse in terms of the different things that they do. We could go over probably 20 different ministries that the Passion Center has. And so when we were going on this trip, they did exactly what you said, Dave. They're like, okay, who do you have going? What are their gifts? And so one of the things we did, as I kind of explained to Eric, who is the founder of the Passion Center, who was our missions pastor at Lake City here for many years, was, hey, we have a really musically gifted team. And part of that, we knew that we were bringing Veronica. We had some other students who were really gifted. So he said, God's been doing something really cool. In the past few years, we've started a college ministry where we'll go out on a Friday night and go to the colleges and lead worship nights. And we've seen our college ministry blow up. We've never done a big college conference before. What do you guys think about leading that? And so that was really kind of the giftings of our team. Veronica led a team of our students. I preached as well as one of our students, Dustin Kinney, preached as well. And
So you didn't plan for this months in advance?
it was maybe a month in advance. It was, and then...
Oh, so they did give you some warning.
Yeah, we had some warning, but that is one of the big cultural differences is we talked to the team about, and I think you knew from your experience in Haiti, like, I get some of this. Like, it's a little more last minute, laid back culture. And I would say the pros to that is it's a lot more relational too, because it's less worried about time and structure. So you can sit and talk with people. But after one of our college conferences, the big one, there was over 200 college kids there.
Wow.
That Veronica got to lead worship. It was so powerful. And I'm sure she'll share more about that. But the next day they're like, hey, we're going to go out to this church that's 2 hours away in a Muslim community. We're thinking about doing another college conference there. What do you think? And I'm like, Veronica, this is 12 hours away. What do you think about pulling this off? Whereas in America, we'd be like, we need like a month to prepare. What am I going to teach on? What songs are we going to do? And the students were so flexible. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever can honor God and honor that church, we're in. So it was really sweet.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, and thanks for saying a little bit more about the Passion Center. I realize we just sort of jumped in, but Eric VBS, for those that have not met Eric, used to be a missions pastor here. They've been a part of our church for a while and founded the Passion Center. And then the other two names that I mentioned, Polera is the in-country director of the Passion Center, which I love to have the local Malawians heading up the ministry. And then what is Saul's title? Do you remember?
Is he executive director?
Yeah, I mean, they're basically one and two in the ministry.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're such dear brothers. They love the Lord, and it's been really fun to see them each time.
And they've been here to Lake City as well.
have.
They've made trips over here, both Saul and Polaris. So that's been a really cool relationship. Yeah.
So you mentioned multifaceted. What we know began was the Passion Center for Children. That's always a piece of these trips. It's always a piece of everything that happens. Passion Center for Pastors, where they train pastors, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about that in a sec. But tell us, Passion Center for Children, you guys did some kids ministry stuff. What did that look like?
Yeah, so we did a couple different what we call VBSs or Vacation Bible School outreaches, which is basically going to one of their local churches that the Passion Center has, which they have around 10 now, which when we were there 2 years ago, they had around 5. So they doubled, which in American standards, like the time it takes to plant a church is usually like 12 to 24 months. So they did 5 in 2 years, which is absurd. And so we got to do these outreaches to the kids in these local villages. Do you want to talk about what those look like?
Yeah, so that was such a blessing because I remember before our trip, like we were working for the VBS for our skit and stuff. And so we did the David and Goliath skit, which was amazing. And it was so much fun. My brother Jeremiah, he was David and Jacob was Goliath. And I just remember like the kids being so engaging with that. And Justin did such a good job sharing the gospel afterwards, getting the kids into, we call them small groups, but they were really like
Big groups.
big groups.
It's like 25 Malawian kids versus one of us.
Yeah, we had these little coloring sheets and we were able to hand those out and talk to the kids, asking them if they needed help getting their crayons and different stuff. But it was such a blessing.
You know what I remember is driving to the church, and because it's not like you're getting off I-5 and there's this, you're basically just driving back into someplace and there's nobody there, and then you kind of see some kids popping out, and then they're honking the horn, and then just remember kids showing up, and 1 minute there's 10 kids there, and the next minute you turn around and there's 100 kids. And like, where do they all come from?
It's amazing, and that speaks to the partnership with the local church, and that's really one of the things that I think separates the Passion Center from some other organizations is they're not parachurch. They are the church. Their church planning network, all their ministry they do is based around the local church. So when we go to a village to do these VBSs, well, it's at the local church, and that's intentional because they don't want to operate ministries that are going to have a lack of follow-up or relational or discipleship connection. So they're going, let's do it at the local church. And all the people now know, well, if I want to get fed spiritually on a Sunday morning, this is the place I go. And the local pastor of that church is almost always there when we're doing the VBSs, so he can connect with those people. So it's not just, here come us from America, bye, we'll see you later, and there's no follow-up to anything. It's meant to be discipleship-oriented through the local church. And so all these ministries, they have the medical outreach, the special needs, which we'll talk about later, are all based around the hub of the local church. And they have 10 of them.
I know if Kelly were here, she would say this, because the other thing I think for church family to know is our teams, they're doing ministry, but they're doing it alongside Passion Center staff and the local Malawians that are there. And one of the things that Kelly always reminds people is how beautiful it is that it's not, to your point, it's not the Americans showing up. Look at us, we're so great. We are really empowering and just kind of helping support, almost like out of the way, handing them the things to give so that really they're the ones that, because we know when it's all over, we're leaving. The people staying are the local staff, and so to have them really the ones that are raised up and encouraged feels so good and feels so right.
Yeah, and that's really been intentional on Eric's part. Like if you remember him talking to us, like, hey, if you want to give a kid a shirt or a soccer ball, love it. Give it to the Passion Center staff and allow them to be the hero. Because exactly what you said, you're leaving, but they're going to have that lasting impact. And if they build that equity with that kid because they gave him the ball, well, the gospel is going to be so much more receivable by those kids because of that.
Obviously, there's a part of us that like, forget it. I want that. I want that. But when you just realize the long-term effect of that, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, and the long-term effect too, I think, is what we have in mind when we're thinking about a mission trip, because again, we don't want these to be one and done. So it was really neat seeing, we had 2 or 3 students who had been 2 years ago, and they found Passion Center staff who remembered their name. So again, it wasn't this one and done. It was this building a bridge of relationship across generations, across the world for the advancement of God's kingdom.
I love that. So along with children, there's also some other things. They've got some orphan rescue programs. I know Kelly and I really loved was the child-headed household. What is a child-headed household? That's not a term we hear around here much.
Yeah, it's not a term that we use, but it basically is what it sounds like. There's basically, it's usually mom and dad have passed away. I don't know the exact number, but I think the life expectancy of someone in Malawi is somewhere around late 40s.
Yeah.
And so a lot of kids are growing up without mom and dad. And so child-headed household is when that child who's lost mom and dad now becomes the head of the household. So they usually are the oldest in that home, raising younger siblings.
And by child, like we're not talking 25, 30. Like these are
Talking 12 or 13.
which makes them vulnerable, makes them not necessarily able to feed and do all the things that a head of a household you would expect to do. All of those things come along with that title.
And that speaks to how the Passion Center originally started, which was the story is Eric VBS and Palera, a young Malawian, playing pickup basketball in Blantyre, the big city in Malawi, and they started dreaming about what would it look like to run an orphanage and redeem, rescue, and restore young people who've had broken families. And that child-headed household ministry has come out of that. And we got to see a house dedication, which do you want to talk about what that looked like?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so on our first day in like actual Malawi, we got to do orientation and the tour, but towards the end of the day, we got to experience the house dedication. And that was such a cool experience. The girl, she was probably 14 or 13 years old. And I think what really spoke out to me was how all these village heads and the community just came and was actually talking to them and saying like, hey, like, you know, we're giving you guys this house, but please take care of it, and giving them advice and encouragement, really letting them know that they're not alone, but to also see how the Passion Center was able to do that. That was amazing.
And a small thing, they talked about having a house with a door. Most of the homes don't have doors. So the kids would often feel it was common for people to break in because there's no adult.
You have a 14-year-old girl that's the head of the home.
So even to have this new home that the Passion Center helped pay for, and now it has a door that locks, and the safety that would provide this young family was tremendous by the look in their eyes describing that.
That's so sweet. They have a program called Champs. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, so Champs is what they call their special needs ministry. And so it's fairly typical in African culture, as Eric has described it to us, that if you have a child that is born with special needs, that's seen as some sort of curse that's been placed on your family. So for many parents, it's seen as, I need to figure out a way to distance myself from this curse, which often means either abandoning the child or just not going out in public because there's so much shame with your kid who has special needs. And therefore, in a country that already lacks a lot of resources for those kids, it's even more so, where they don't have just basic resources or even dignity as a human being because of that curse.
Well, I mean, we have enough trouble in the U.S. With that dynamic, but it's just hard to imagine in a poorer country how exponentially harder that would be.
Yeah, they just name these kids as children of God who have a purpose and a hope for their life. They have a ministry where they bring in occupational therapists from the U.S., from different colleges, and they'll actually train up some of the locals in Malawi to provide occupational therapy for the kids. But the other really cool thing they do is they really are intentional about loving on the mamas, who many of them are just exhausted and just completely, I think, dissatisfied with how their life currently is because there's no support. And so they love on them and minister to the moms and encourage them. They have active ministries where the moms can feel filled up in love. So it's a really holistic outlook on how to reach these young kids.
I love that. And church family, I would say it may sound like we're just trying to do a commercial for the Passion Center. In some ways I am, in the sense of this maybe helps you understand like why we put a lot of effort into going. But the reality is I also want to now maybe circle back and really talk about just the experience that our team have. A buddy Bill Page, and he loves talking about in Ezekiel, there's this time when it talks about them coming into the city through one gate, and it says, don't leave through the same gate. And his point was, we always want to leave different than we came. And certainly, anytime we do something as big as this, you kind of feel that way. What were some things that impacted you? What were some things that you saw impact our students?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think the challenge is we think about American missions and short-term missions is we are going to become changed by this experience. And at the same time, it's not about us, and we're here to be the hands and feet. And so holding both of those two things, because I think sometimes we come at it with, this is for me and for me to get changed and filled up, which is part of that. That's absolutely true.
Yep.
And it's actually not about us, and we're going to leave, and the Malawians are going to be the heroes, and God's going to get the glory. And so kind of naming both of those two things, I think is really helpful, because the reality is, like, I think every one of us came back different. So I don't know if there's a specific thing that you want to touch on there.
Yeah, whenever I think about this trip, I just think about like how I went like expecting to serve and to be blessed, but I came back feeling like I was being served to and like I was being ministered to. And I think the biggest thing was, even when we were mentioning the champs, I have never worked around special needs kids, and going in with like our team and doing that and just sitting down with one of them. I remember this one girl, her name was Edith, and just being able to like sit down, and she just took my hand and she just brought me in for like, you know, a big hug. And that really touched my heart, because I was like, the Lord can do so much. And seeing how the workers there were just so invested in these kids, that just touched me so much.
Love that.
I just, every time we go, I'm just mesmerized by how our students respond to the things that they've seen. Because you can go in and actually harden your heart to some of what you're seeing, the poverty and the hurt, and kind of go, well, this is for them, but this isn't really my problem. I have my own stuff at home. And you can actually kind of guard yourself from allowing the Holy Spirit to touch you and break your heart. And I'm always encouraged by seeing our students actually moved to tears by some of the brokenness that they see. And then they go, man, I actually want to go back and I want my life to look a little different, because now I've been exposed to this. I can't pretend that it's not real, because I've seen it. So you come back and you really change the way you think about money a little bit, and how you should steward it. And it's not a extremist, like I'm not going to spend a penny the rest of my life, but it is a little bit like, man, if the average wage is $2 a day in Malawi, I might think about how I spend $2 a little differently now. And the fact that they have so much joy in everything they do with so little, I think, again, with us in America, with abundant of opportunities and stuff, we can go, man, even with little, I can actually be really content, because it's based on Christ. It's not based on what I have. And so for me, that contentment and that joy that the people hold there in Malawi is always a great encouragement.
Often we pray that prayer, Lord, break my heart for the things that break yours. And when I think of that, when I've been there on this trip, is because, to your point, plenty of times I walk by things there and don't even notice. And then you say, okay, Lord, you know, please break my heart for the thing. And so that opportunity to not just go and do a trip, but to go and allow it to impact you, allow it to impact your life, and then to be able to come back with that is something that you can't, because, you know, when you talk about tension, there's a huge tension in putting the money and the effort to get a team over there. And there's plenty of people that would say, forget it, just send the money. It's not like that's the dumbest thing you could do. But when you experience, number one, how the Lord uses you when you're there, and how God's able to use even your small giftings to impact the kingdom there. It's hard to put a dollar figure to that. But then also, when you do come back and you realize the impact that God has been able to do on lives would be hard to do any other way. It just puts it in a different category. Oh, wait, before we wrap up, I want to hear food experiences.
So we always try to prep the team really well and just go, hey, this isn't your 5-star restaurant. This isn't going to be American food as you know it. And so we want to approach this with a lot of grace and hospitality and kindness. But the kids could not stop raving about how good the chicken and rice was that we had every single night. And I try, in my mind, I'm going, I love the food, but I don't want to set the expectation really high, you know, and you could tell it was pretty great.
It was pretty good. I was like, I really enjoyed it. They had like this like little vegetable mix too. It was like really good that you put on the rice, and like sometimes you would have chicken or beef. It was really good.
Now we're talking about back at the compound that Passion Center owns. That, because my experience is that the food there was fantastic, but then you would leave the compound and go out, and there were times you ran into like, oh, that's
different things.
That's interesting.
And Eric does a great job of prefacing. See someone waving around a big wooden stick with a mouse on it. That's not for you to eat. That's for someone else to eat. So don't try to eat
or to make a big deal of. It's there. And
The Passion Center staff was sharing a story about when he was growing up, and a hippo was killed in his village, and they got to eat the hippo meat. And I said, well, not something I've tried before, but I'd love to try it one day. So definitely differences for sure. But back at the compound, we had really great meals and still got to experience their flair of, you know, chicken and rice. And it is different for sure, but it was really good.
That's great. All right. Well, you guys, thank you for joining me, and thanks for sharing some of your experiences. And the hope in this was, one, let our church family hear a little bit about what happened, but the other is we are going to do this again. And so if the Lord prompts you or gives you a little nudge, hopefully this maybe gave you some encouragement to look a little bit more into it and consider going the next time we make a trip to Malawi.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks again for joining me, you guys.
All right.
All right. We'll see you later, church.
Thank you for joining us for connection, community, and relationship here on LC3 Family Talk. See you next time.